So what happens when you take a 20-year-old who made a YouTube series about the Backrooms and give him the keys to a fully fledged film with some A-list actors?
It's beautiful. Am I right?
Let's talk about it. So we have finally got a full-fledged Hollywood movie about the Backrooms creepypasta. A little history about this, you guys. This was a photo that went viral in early 2019 of an abandoned workspace, and quickly it became this phenomenon where people were making all this lore and all these interesting stories literally based off of this one photo. There has been literal games built on the Backrooms and many YouTube short films, with Kim Parsons being the most popular of those short films. And that was a big reason why he got the ability to make a full-fledged film about the Backrooms. And I don't know if this is because we're coming off the success of Obsession, one of the best horror movies that have come out in a while, but a movie like this with a lore like this, it should have been better in my opinion. I mean, look, you had the Backrooms, you had the found footage, you had the liminal spaces, internet and horror lore, and endless creepy possibilities, but somehow the movie still feels like it barely scratches the surface of all of these things. And what's frustrating is this movie has a lot of good ideas, but it often pulls away from the most interesting parts right when we're getting into it. Which one of the things we pull away from way too often is the Backrooms themselves. But I do want to say the things that this movie gets right. And that is the atmosphere of the Backrooms. Like, you feel how creepy they are and how every other corner something else is lingering. And not only the fact that there's something around the corner, but that those corners will never end. There will always be something different and stuff that doesn't make sense that linger behind every other turn. The empty rooms, the weird lighting, even the coloring of the walls. It all hits. And the fact is, we get there a little too late. Like, this movie starts off amazing with some found footage. And that's where I think this movie should have lingered in. Like, we should have had way more found footage in this than we did. Because when we're going that route, I'm pulled in. And I think everybody in the theater was pulled in from that first couple of minutes. And the fact that we see the industry behind the hazmat suits and they're trying to figure out what's going on in the back rooms, which is most of the lore. And there was a point where we go back to the found footage and I thought, oh, is this going to be the rest of the movie? And I truly got excited about that. And I was going to throw away all of my complaints about that 20-minute segment that we got beforehand. But we see it for about 10 minutes and it never shows up again. And luckily in that first 20 minutes, it really relies on the actors to carry the film, and they do an amazing job. The performances here are really strong, and I feel like they're just struggling and battling with the script and not really the performances. Like, if there was a stronger script here, I would have a whole different opinion about this movie. But relying on this cast and for them to fill the void up until when we get to the back rooms is a hard ask to put on any actor. And I do think a lot of this filler should have been cut out and we should have been spending most of our times in the rooms themselves. And this is what kind of breaks down the main issue, is there's a huge pacing issue. There's moments where we're in the back rooms and we're seeing all the creepy stuff that's going on in them. And then it cuts to a therapist and some weird subplot with her upbringing. For them to kind of bring that fully around toward the end, but not really tie in at all. Like, there wasn't a huge payoff that I was expecting from that subplot, and it could have been cut out completely and given us way more time in the rooms. And I will say there is a point where the film shifts and the lore kind of takes over. And I got extremely excited because one of our characters is getting interrogated and I'm like, oh, so this is where the rest of the movie's gonna go. Not realizing that that was the last couple minutes of the movie. And we're left with an abrupt cut and then nothing is explained and it's left for your own perception. Which I get it. That's what the Backroom should be. It should be a mystery. There should never be a black and white answer. It should be up to the viewer on how they're perceiving things. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this ending is still super unsatisfying. Like, you can have ambiguous endings and you can have ones that have the viewers questioning what they just watched. But my main question when the credits rolled was, why did I just sit down and watch this? And that brings me back to my thoughts about how the Backrooms lore should be approached when it comes to building off into broader content. And I really do think this is a concept that would benefit more on a show instead of a full-fledged film. Like, think about an anthology show where every episode shows different people going into the back rooms. That would broaden the lore and make it so you can branch off onto these more specific stories instead of shoving that all into a 2-hour film. And I feel like we'd be able to see a lot more of what we want to see instead of characters who we're introduced to and really don't care about too much. And also, for a movie that has an R rating, I questioned whether this movie was PG-13. Like, if it wasn't for all the F-bombs that happened into it, I really would have thought that this movie was PG-13 and they went that way to get a broader audience to show up. But they didn't do anything with this R rating. Like, there was a couple of gory scenes, I guess, but nothing we haven't seen in a slasher movie or even like a PG-13 horror movie. So it begs the question of, why are we rating this R if we're not going to fully indulge in that R rating? And I know that I might be in the small group that didn't like this movie, but I can't sit here and tell you that I walked out of that feeling fully fulfilled. And from what I'm seeing, a lot of people have felt the same way. And I know the fans are going to be always supportive of this because they want to see more. But we have to remember, we have to be critical of this stuff so that we can get better stories told. Because there was so much potential with this lore, and this movie didn't do it justice. And I would honestly love to see Kane Parsons take this concept and put it into a show format. Something that he has already done on his YouTube channel, and focus on maybe exploring more of the interesting parts of the Backrooms, because it also felt like we didn't see a whole lot of the Backrooms. It was a lot of repeat rooms, and I get it, if it's practical, it's harder to go into the broader kind of rooms that we've seen in the games. But that's why I think an anthology would just do so much better, because each one could be about a different person and a different section of the Backrooms. I won't say this was a complete flop, I guess. I mean, I enjoyed some parts, and I mean, it was just cool seeing the Backrooms on the big screen. But I also can't sit here and tell you that this movie is fully fledged and just a 10 out of 10. It really was a missed opportunity, and I feel like this should have taken more time in the script room, and they should have made a more interesting and lore-based story, instead of introducing us to characters who we've never heard of and we don't care about, and they're infiltrating the back rooms and really nothing's coming from it. There wasn't enough ambiguity, there wasn't enough found footage segments, and there wasn't much of a story to tell here. And to me, the movie never fully comes together. And if they decide not to do the anthology series that I recommend and they end up doing another movie, I want to see more found footage, I want to see more lore, and I just want to see a better script put together for that. But I want to know what you guys think. Did the Backrooms 2026 work for you? Or do you think all the points I said are valid and there should have been way more in this movie? But if you didn't know, my name is Ben James and I often do analysis and reviews on this channel. I recently just put a video out about the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, so go ahead and check that out. But that is going to be it for me, you guys. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!